That's pretty good. That's a pretty good one, if I do say so myself.
You know what? On the scale of Wattos, I'm going to put that at about a Watto.
Yeah.
you hit the requirement of Watto to be on that scale. So well done there, Dan.
Thanks.
Well done.
Thanks.
Max Watto.
The best part of this is nobody's going to know what we're talking about. So we're live now. We weren't before. You'll never know unless Dan finds it within like the goodness of his heart to make an Easter egg at some point in time in the future.
There is no goodness in my heart. Oh, there's none.
Dang.
It's true.
This is the return of angsty, angry stage. Look, man, this is another thing that if you don't watch the show, you'll never understand.
Yeah.
I still have that picture of you in my head. That is forever my mental image of you, Dan. Just the angry Dan on stage, just grilling the people in the audience. And I couldn't be happier about it, buddy. I love you, bud. You're great.
It's going to be a better Twitch TV mode.
Are you doing it?
I'm going to do it, yeah. It's just, that way everybody can use it anywhere. It belongs to the people now.
That seems like begrudging acceptance. The internet has it now. There's nothing I can do.
To the people.
That pretty much summarizes this entire show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 229 of the Planet Destiny podcast. We are back once again to talk to you about the goings-on in the Destiny world. And what an episode we have this week. Our guest tonight, the one, the only, Mr. Sarsion, or as we call him, Sarsione, is here. He is the community's probably most prolific Elixni language specialist, I think I would say. If you've been following the cryptography of the Elixni language over the last couple of years, you've no doubt come into contact with his work. I do believe you're on the Ishtar
Collective, yeah.
The Ishtar Collective
the Errata
website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they use your work there. You've been credited and cited in Polygon. You've got a YouTube channel where you put this kind of stuff up. Welcome to the channel, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I feel very welcome.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And what was it, last week? We had a bit of a thing happen in terms of the Elixni language in Destiny 2, thanks to, what was it, the Chinese version of the game? What happened?
Yeah. So I'd been thinking about it for a while because I'd been trying to find different leads and different ways I could maybe translate the language just from the new lore that came out with Forsaken and onwards. And I thought, there's no leads in the English stuff anywhere. There's no leads that I can find at all in dialogue, anything like that. Nothing in the Grimoire books or anything like that. So I thought, what if we tried the different languages and just had a look through that? So I started with French, went to German, went through Spanish, all of those. And I was like, no, there's not going to be anything looked at Japanese. Still nothing. It's all phonetic. And I thought, okay, we might as well try Chinese. So I tried traditional first, I think. And I was like, why is there stuff in brackets? Hold on. Because I couldn't read it at first, And I was like, I don't know what this is. Took it into Google Translate, threw it in. Literally just tells you straight out that Irsovex means I don't believe it. You're like, okay, cool. We have a lead. What? Jumped on Twitter, immediately just blew my mind. I didn't know what else to do. That's why that first tweet that you could have seen was just me freaking out for ages. Like, what?
Wasn't it
and
all
of course,
caps?
that's the one. I think part of it was, I was super excited. Not expect that one to be the one that jumped off and got everybody looking at it.
So wait a minute. Well, hold up. You're telling me that the Chinese subtitles were in Fallen language?
So they did it in two different ways. We discovered that it's the simplified Chinese versions of the lore cards and the collection. Some of them, not all of them. It depends which phase it is and which team of localizers it would have been that they used. But some of them do their best to get sort of phonetic closeness to the way the Fallen's written in English. And then for some reason, they seem to have taken Bungie's notes, put in brackets what it actually means in their simplified Chinese translation. And literally just tells you what the sort of general context of the words all mean. We're not 100% sure if it is direct back to English is what it should have been for what Bungie wanted it to be. So there's a lot of interpretive stuff going on there because a lot of the words are sort of reused in different places. So it's it's that part of that's been the hard part, parsing everything, just trying to figure out, okay, so this word's been used here in this context, but this word's also been used here in this other context. What's the actual synonym that we're looking for that makes sense of this whole thing? Because, you know, machine translation can only get you so far. So
Yeah.
we've tried to rally together as many Chinese linguists as we can to really look at it and be like, well, what does this actually mean? What is this sentence actually saying? But that kind of depends on the quality of the localization as well. There's been some comments about that I've found. So
Is the fallen language Chinese?
I guess so.
It could very well be, yeah.
So does everybody in China like know what the fallen are saying and not any of us?
It seems
What
like
if
that's
they're
been the case since Forsaken, yeah. For the most part, anyway. There's a few entries like Truth, for example, I think, doesn't have anything in it except like the actual English fallen words, the English fallen words, you know what I mean? Like with English characters. So we don't know why that is. And some of the other ones haven't been translated as well. It's weird, like crisscross patterns of how they're actually choosing to do it. I take it they would have just put it to different teams, and who knows whether it was a consistent team or if they got different notes, or, you know, whoever was the lead on it. But I it's hard to tell if it was an intentional way of planting some information, or, you know, if it was like maybe back from the Chinese players, they were like, well, I would like to know more, this sort of thing. Who knows how it was? But from some of the things people have been saying in the server, that I think there was one guy who said he does localization himself. He's like, no, it seems like it was a mistake. So
This is just the script.
it's a fortunate mistake, but, you know,
Yeah.
it's worked out.
Yeah, and I find that crazy because over the last couple of years, you've been working, trying to kind of script out and put together the bits of the fallen language, see exactly how they would translate into English and, you know, other languages, so we can figure out exactly what these fallen are saying. And suddenly the Chinese version of the game comes out and they just dump the script as the subtitle.
Literally.
It's
Well, the fascinating thing about that, though, is you know, once the Chinese lore cards thing dropped, a few people, I think from Ishtar Collective, talked to a couple of people that work at Bungie, and I think there's somebody on Twitter called Mallory, who is the narrative lead for Destiny 2. She was saying that it's actually all the combat sound effects from Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, because Fallen and Cabal very much used the same stuff.
Yeah.
None of that was intentional. It was never supposed to be an actual language. So for the most part, it looks like all the work I did wasn't actually like based on anything. But the weird thing is, I know it's like a hard blow to the face. Like, no, well, you messed that up for like 4 years of your life. But no, the interesting thing is, there is some sort of pattern to like Skolas's dialogue or Tanix's, and if you look at the stuff that I posted on Ishtar Collective and the Fallen translation video with Varix, you can see there is some sort of pattern to how Skolas and Tanix speaks, but there's a chance they just looked at some of the syllables and phonetics they had and went, bow kind of could be banner, so we'll just place that there, and, you know, something like that. So they could have just matched up as close as they could when they're doing recording sessions, but it makes sense, I guess, that they would never have had time to do the translation. But there were reasons why I thought that they'd had it from the get-go, but well.
Well, and I mean, the work that you've been putting together over these years has some coherent structure to it. So it certainly seems like that there is a bit more of a base language there that Bungie's working with.
100%. And it's now been confirmed by the same person that everything post-Forsaken is an actual constructed language, and it should be reverse engineerable. Hence why it is obviously possible to look at the Chinese translations and get it back.
It's, you know, it reminds me of things like the Romulan language and whatnot in Star Trek. You know, they track all of those different languages in Star Trek, or whether it's the Elvish language in Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. This is kind of the same thing, but with the Elixir. But I love the notion that it kind of started out as an accident, sort of random thing of Bungie throwing stuff together, and you seeing a ley line in there that maybe they didn't intend. And suddenly when D2 comes out and all this stuff, and, you know, a greater focus on backstory and lore, they kind of have to retroactively go and throw together a coherent language that players can uncover on their own. And I wouldn't say your previous 4 years was for nothing, because obviously, like I said before, you obviously struck some sort of ley line there, because you created a coherent structure. you created a coherent, followable structure of language there. And now it seems like we've gotten some help from our friends in China from across the pond.
100%.
Yeah. Before we go any further, I do want to take the moment to say hi. We're your usual roundtable of hosts, Dan Finity, and of course, Mr. Evil Aura. My name is the Black Link. We're gonna have a lot of fun with this episode because Elixni language is fun. The Elixni lore is fantastic, and I'm glad that we've certainly, since Destiny 2 came out and since Forsaken went forward, we've started to learn a lot more concrete information about the entire Fallen race and their history there. So from that point, I want to say, Sarsion, how did you get started in all of this? What made you want to dig into a video game language?
It is a good question. I think if I go back to about 2010, 2011, 2012 or so, I was living in Seattle on and off for like a few months, and I was in contact with somebody that worked at Bungie on the audio team, and they did tell me at some point that they had constructed a language for Halo Reach for the Covenant, and like you can tell playing the game, there is something with the audio and dialogue in there. And so they never said specifically they were going to do it for their next game, which they told me nothing about. But I thought, well, because I'd written threads ages ago back on Bungie.net, like during ODST and Reach time, back when I was known as Sonic John, which I'm sure many people.
I'm going to ask the story behind that name later.
But that was good times. Yeah, I used to post a lot on the Bungie.net forums, like a lot. But yeah, I used to make big theory threads, and one of those was why ODST and Reach were basically just Bungie's ways of being like, well, we have to make 2 more Halo games. Why don't we just experiment for what we want to do next? And for as far as I can tell, everything they tried out in ODST and Reach came to fruition in some way in Destiny. And so I thought, well, if you've made a language for Reach, that seems like a strange thing to spend a lot of time and effort and budget doing. Why wouldn't you take that forward, So when you're playing Destiny 1 and you're listening to all these enemies chasing you and you're like, that sounds like they're saying something, but it doesn't sound like any language I've ever heard of. You're like, well, maybe there's something there. But until House of Wolves came out, like there was absolutely nothing and no way of being like, is there any way of figuring this out? And then when Varix told us, the first thing I went was, I should do something about this. And then it took a bit of time, but I got there and decided to pick it up. And then all that work was for nothing. So I don't even know why I spent that time. But it's been fun.
Yeah, and I find that fantastic. So when Varix was introduced in House of Wolves, I'm assuming when he was speaking, of course, we got a translation on the screen. Is that how it started? So you just kind of listened to the sounds he was making and lined it up with
exactly. So there's those 3. I think it's the 3 missions that you do on Venus where Skolas is speaking to you, and Varix just replies back by saying, "In your tongue, he said." Whatever. Whereas like Skolas is busy going Ilovos Dradaki, Drasku, Drake. And you're like, okay, what the hell does that mean? And then,
something about
I know these almost off by heart because I've sat there listening for ages going, was that a K? Was that a G? What kind of letter was that? I don't know what you said for hours. Like for like at least like I remember a solid 2 months every other night just going, I'm really sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry. I need to listen to this. It was a good laugh.
Saying to me.
Yeah, it's the same line of dialogue over and over and over. Took ages.
Yeah. So I'd imagine sitting there trying to hear every last syllable and figure out exactly how that all comes together. So you start listening to these things. You start trying to tie it together with the words that you're seeing on screen. How did this go from 3 missions worth of audio to entire websites and videos filled with translations? How did you put all of that together?
Just a lot of hard work, I think I spent most of my time in Excel just doing spreadsheet stuff and really just trying to break down the words, because I had a theory that there was a lot of repeated sounds and it sounded like there was just individual 2-letter words basically, and I was like, that can't be 100% the case. So maybe they're building words like conjoined, concatenated things, like how we have the word before, you have be and for, 2 completely separate words, put them together, whole new meaning, right? So I was like, well, maybe the Fallen have the exact same sort of thing. And I started trying to look for patterns in all of the dialogue and figure out like, well, Varix says that this word is forever or something, something like that. See if we can find a way of turning that into like a consistent pattern. I'll try and look at some of the old words I have here. So I have quite a lot of the old dialogue here, and it's
Wow.
all over the place. And then, like, a lot of it was, well, there's patterns with different end words. So like ba, I noticed that there were sometimes you would say like bass, or it would sound like bar, and I'm like, well, that's kind of an interesting pattern. You could maybe intuit that as being like an adjective or an adverb or like some sort of verb. Like you could maybe find a pattern in that. So I thought I'd found some sort of pattern. Clearly, like I was looking in the wrong places and stuff. But it's an interesting start. You can 100% look at it and be like, well, no, that makes sense. I could actually understand just listening to that and reading these words. Oh, I could see how that constructs a sentence. And then like you collect as much combat dialogue as you could, and then start reading the words from the Fallen, like from Skolas, and you go, well, that kind of makes a sentence, but because it's so vague, like you can sort of jumble up in your head and say, well, he is totally saying we are the thieves of the traveler. 100%, I can see that, and it's just a lot of back and forth. But you get there eventually, and you get a list of like 80 odd words.
See, that's incredible. Like. Just for the meme and hilarity factor, I want to believe that Bungie just randomly threw these grunts together and somehow a ley line of
magically
was found. But like that's too perfect. You figure out, I think Varix once says that he says something unpleasant about us, like some kind of insult.
Yeah, the silent fang.
Yeah, and like I have to wonder. I imagine you spend so much time listening to these different audio clips. How many different variations of fallen grunts are there from the NPCs that we just interact with in gameplay?
So in the video I have where Varix walks you through it, I have literally every unique line of dialogue that's in Destiny 1 from every combat unit in the game.
Insane. Wow.
It is unbelievably insane. I don't know if they've added more to Destiny 2. From the sounds of it, there's been a couple, because I've had a look through some of the archives of stuff, but for the most part, like, there's a lot. Like the video is like 8 or 9 minutes long or something like that, and it's just dialogue, Varix telling you what it is, dialogue, Varix telling you what it is, and it's just like an 8-minute long video with just like short 2-3 second clips of dialogue. It added up a lot.
Yeah, I can't even begin to imagine how long that must have taken to get the individual grunts. I'd imagine sitting there recording and like, wait, was that a different like dreg grunt than the previous one?
100%. Like the easiest one to listen to would be the Archons and the the Kells, because dregs are just and you don't understand what they're saying.
Yeah, that scroosh was longer than the other scroosh.
So does this include the servitors?
So the servitors actually as well, they have distorted versions of the exact same dialogue. Like if you listen to everything they're saying, it's the same thing, but it's just put through like a crazy distortion, like Doppler effect type thing. And once you've listened to the dialogue as much as I have, you start to go, oh my god, the servitors are actually trying to talk to us. That's crazy. They are basically just their ghosts. Like you don't really realize it. Like I don't know if Shanks have the same thing, but I know that the Fallen refer to our ghosts as Shanks. So I feel like there might be something similar in there. So,
I mean, what about, just because I've spent more time than I care to talk about in the forges lately, and Gofanon Forge specifically with a giant servitor, just absolute asshole of a boss. But does he? And listen, I know you're laughing, but that dude's a dick. All right, I'm just gonna say it. Dude's a dick.
Sure.
Does he have his own? Like, will you pull apart any of the Destiny 2? Because there's not that many high tier fallen characters that jump out at me in Destiny 2 yet that would have their own unique kind of language or their own unique dialogue. That's one of the biggest bosses that I could think of that's a fallen boss, is that douchebag servitor.
So I know that they basically copied almost, if not all, the original Destiny 1 Fallen dialogue over. And they kept it the same for all the Kells, all the Archons, everything like that. Just threw it back in. And I think they would have done the same for all the servers as well. I don't want to spend all my time listening to just servitors, seeing if I can figure out if they're got anything unique. Who knows though? They might be, making fun of you for how much you hate playing that part.
Well, I'm gonna pick this Titan up who's not even paying attention to me right now. I'm gonna drop him over here because I'm not gonna mess with people who are actually doing damage to me just because. I'm gonna find the guy who's not even looking at me. I'm gonna teleport him. I think I got all the shaders, by the way. All the shaders for the collections for Blacksmith are acquired. I'm never stepping foot in a forge ever again.
Good job.
So we're all aware.
Congratulations. I'm not doing it. Absolutely not.
I'm thankful I did it a while ago before they changed it up so it was playlist. Yeah.
That's such a headache
Yeah.
going through all of that for the most minute of drops.
Oh yeah.
See, my mind is racing trying to figure out specific examples of high tier Fallen. And the biggest one I can think of, Axis from
Yeah.
Wrath of the Machine. Does he have any unique dialogue, or is it just different variations of already existing sound?
I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's all still the exact same Kel combat dialogue. I don't think the only unique dialogue in the game that appears nowhere else is all like Skolas, Tanix, and Archon's Forge. Those are the three places that anything unique is said. Like the Silent Fangs line, that literally is just a normal combat sound effect. Like it's just any Fallen will say that around you and near you. Like Mithrax, I think one of his lines is a Tanix line, and then I think another one is just another generic combat sound effect. So like I think they put some effort in thinking about like which one should we use just to get the general tone down, because I don't know, I can't tell if they ever looked at the stuff I did for it. I imagine most of their stuff is like quite they are in a bubble making their own game, you know. But like I imagine that they might have thought about that sort of thing. But as far as I can tell, it's all just like unique when they need it to be unique, and then combat dialogue if it's just generic stuff.
So what was unique in the Archon's Forge? Because that's something I hadn't even
everything
thought about.
Everything the announcer says, it's completely unique. It's not really something you spend much time thinking about, but like to get the general tone down, I think they spent a lot of time being like, right, we want this guy, whoever it is, if it's Axis or whoever is supposed to be looking after the Forge, we want him to just laugh at you all the time. So they would have thought, well, we'll need something more specific than just your generic, combat dialogue. And I like it probably the most because it's where the Fallen will laugh at you more than anywhere else. It's a good
That's
time.
what was going on in there. We were getting laughed at.
Yeah, they were literally just laughing at us. Especially if you fail. I don't know how often you've ever the Archon's Forge, but no, they just laugh at you. And as far as I could tell, they were basically just saying, "There's no point you even trying, or everyone come back. There's no point going to the trouble like trying to deal with them." That's the best I could figure out. But
they're literally making fun of us for wasting our time in a 4-man activity.
Everybody come in. It's Dan. He can't hit that far.
Oh, you think you're about to get that Saladin's Vigil? No. Fallen chatter. I had never once even thought about the fact that there were unique audio lines in the Archon's Forge and who was putting that out there. I'm thinking of the lore implications of that. Who was watching us farm away in the Archon's Forge for hours at a time to get us a fusion rifle? Who was that?
I don't know. I reckon it was Axis, because like he was plugged into the machine, so he was seeing everything going on all the time. So I reckon it was him. But I mean, it's an Archon's Forge, so I don't know. I can't remember who the Archon was at the time. I know there was a strike for him, but I just can't remember his name.
Yeah. Oh, that dick with the ogre.
Yes. Oh my God.
Worst strike. Holy hell, was that strike bad?
Every time it was a nightfall, I stopped. I was like,
no,
I'll skip this week, guys. Don't worry.
I don't need my nightfall this week. Oh well. You know what? Just for lore purposes, I'm gonna agree. It was Axis. And you know what? Who got the last laugh when I equipped a spinny sword and killed you in seconds? Yeah, hold that L. See, that's fantastic. I miss Archon's Forge. I like that activity. That was a fun little mini activity.
It's a good grind.
Yeah, it was a pretty good grind, and it had some decent gear tied behind it. And I could see that that was the format that Bungie would come to use every season now with stuff like the sundial and whatnot.
It's a good formula.
It works. And as much as Aura doesn't want it to happen, another one's coming next season.
Another what? What's coming?
Another 6-man activity for endless grinding.
Wait, what? I mean, is Osiris gonna fight Rasputin?
Oh, I would buy tickets to that fight.
Listen, I have very little fear as a Guardian. There's a lot of things that I am not messing with Rasputin.
No.
Nope. I'm out.
He's a planet gun.
You're on. Yeah. You're on your own, Osiris. You take care of this one, pal. See ya.
Yeah, greatest cage fight in Destiny history, greatest Guardian in history, who isn't us, versus a planet gun now in charge of 9 planets guns.
Yeah.
People seem to forget about that little lore bit. Back before they retconned the whole Charlemagne and the other war mines thing. I still don't accept that, by the way, Bungie. That's garbage. It's garbage. Basically uploaded Rasputin to all the other war mine systems, and he took over all of them.
Soul.
All of the planet guns are underneath Rasputin's control. He should be doing a lot more to protect the solar system than he currently is. And that's probably lore-wise why you should be concerned. And probably why Osiris is a little bit mad. Probably was a little bit mad. Still, cool cutscene. I hope it leads to something.
He's miffed because the pyramid ship's in the system, right? And we weren't told about it? Yeah?
Weren't told about it? Weren't warned?
I think he also saw something else in the corridors of time, and he's like, "Yeah, I know what's coming. Like, I'm not happy with this. Like, what?"
And you didn't do anything to stop it.
Wait, Osiris found out about the Dorito that landed on the moon?
Yeah, the 3D
I'd imagine
Dorito.
he knows.
None of us told him that while we were talking to him, like going. He took issue with Rasputin after we didn't tell him. Like, oh hey, by the way, a giant Dorito landed on the moon, but we're gonna go find Saint 14.
I took care of it.
Things came up.
I guess things did come up. Yeah, we just walked right past that part.
Yeah, it put weird images.
Why is
in my
Osiris
head.
mad at us? Why is he mad at Rasputin? I'd be mad at us. I'd be going to the tower talking to the Guardians about that.
Yeah, it's
Pick us
space
up a planet.
Well, I mean, remember, I
tell
thought
me
knows
when chips come into the system.
Yeah, technically we probably should. But it's like, nah, it's fine. It put weird images into my head, and it gave me a ball, but I'm too busy grinding out sidearms to tell you about the Dorito that's on our moon. Man, I hope that they're going to follow up with that lore-wise next season, and it's not going to be another Aldrin is revived scenario where over a year later, like, where did he go? He just took precious little pulled pork and disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a ship that's got some lore about him chilling out and being hated on by other Guardians. Like, we know that.
Just the mental image of poor little Guardian Aldrin being bullied by other Guardians.
I picture him eating like out of a discarded can of beans, just like the last bit, and he's just like, he's kind of scrounging around in there, and then another Guardian walks up and smacks it out of his hands and goes, "No,
no beans for you." The classic bullying scene from Muscle Beach. Just big guy kicking sand on him. One of our some Titan is there kicking sand on Aldrin right now.
Everywhere he goes, every corner he turns,
that Titan is there.
Why are you guys so like? Why are you guys dicks? Why?
I don't think it's for you. Okay, well, that's all the questions that I could think of off the top of my head for your Elixir language thing. Other than where do you go from here? Because now that you've got this almost direct translation from the Chinese version of the game, what is that meant for the work that you've done, and like, where do you go?
So it's very unlikely that this is ever going to repeat. I think quality control is going to be a little bit more tight. I was on the fence. Like, as soon as I saw this, I went, do I wait until more lore cards are out and then check those, or do I hold back or say something? And so I was like, I'm too excited. I need to know about this now. But the best, we've got a good starting point. Like, we've got as much, if not more, than what we had when I was trying to do it, like back in 2015.
Crazy.
Like, we know, for example, yes is yeah, basically. So EIA. We know no is Nama, but we can kind of tell those from like the English cards. You sort of have that general idea. I think we know a few other words as well, just from that. Like, we know skas is UR, but we don't know what the rest of it is. We generally have an idea that, like, what was it? Skas veskirisk is you are dead or you have no light, and volasusk, skas volasusk means you are dead or you are lifeless or you're unconscious, something like that. And we have a general idea as well. We know what hello and pleased to meet you are. So hello is vel, and pleased to meet you is velask.
Who
So we
says
know
that?
those. Mithrax. Mithrax says that.
okay. The
Please
Said
homie
it to-
Mithrax.
Says it to Sejur. How do you pronounce her name?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. He says it to her, or rather, she says it to him first, and he's like, oh, Valask.
So they have sarcasm.
But yeah. I think he also calls her unrelenting at one point, or something similar to unrelenting, or says you are unrelenting, which if I go through my list here, it is varicis, because whenever there's two eyes, I think it's vari sort of thing. So that's unrelenting, or you're like, God, you're never ending, you nonstop. And we
Right.
also know delicious, which is yavirsi or something like that. And then you also, this is going to be horrendous to pronounce. Give me a second. So we know potato as well.
What?
Or something close to potato.
Is
It's
that
something like
aura in the in the fall language? Is that my name?
it's this is so hard to pronounce. Sakix, P-S-A-K-I-K-S. Sakix is
Sakix.
potato. So you can have a yavarisi sakix, which is a delicious potato.
That's also the name.
Well, their
for,
language is in the game, but
flavor
doesn't have
seekers.
any kind of context in it that actually goes on in the game. Like if I punch them, they'll just call me a delicious potato.
I hope
While
that's what they call you when they kill
while
you.
saying pleased to meet you, you know? Valaski yavarsi varisis.
Oh.
That's like potato. Where does that even come up in the lore?
I think there's a line about how Sejur. I'm just gonna say Sejur. Sure. Let's say sure.
Sure.
I think there's a line about her picking him up like a sack of sakix, like a potato sack. So I think that's what that's supposed to be, just like a sack of potatoes or something like that for the Fallen. So they've obviously got some sort of
Right.
farming memories, or like they are actively farming somewhere in the EDZ, seeing as it's
Yeah.
quite lush, you know. No, it's really cool. It's really cool going through it and being like, okay, I kind of understand the context of what you guys are talking about now.
That's cool.
Like, in the Bird in Part 3, one of the Corridors of Time lore, there's a really quite badass line where the Fallen just all say, Milixnisk Monaquin, which means we are Elixni, your judge. And it's like, oh, that's kind of scary, because then they all shoot Saint and the rest of them and try and kill him. It's like, that's pretty badass. Like,
that's cool.
I like that sort of thing.
That's
really cool.
So much more context to some of the scenes that I think a lot of players probably would just be going through the motions and not even pay attention to when the enemies are yelling at you and talking about that. I wish they would add a way to understand that in game.
That would be good. Like, I suppose you could do something like, I'm sure they did this in, what's it called, No Man's Sky, right? Where you can learn a word in whatever language it was. Like, I feel like there could be room for something like that. And you could add it to some codex or something like that. But that's a lot of work for probably a niche amount of people that could care. But, you know, this thing blows up every time I talk about some new finding or like put a new video out there. Like, people seem hungry for more interesting, I don't know, like language content, something that's a bit more just like, oh, I can learn something that I could use with my friends, and we can talk at school, and nobody knows what we're talking about. We can talk about potatoes all we want now.
They'll never know,
because we couldn't.
They'll never know.
All potatoes, strictly forbidden. Yeah, and you know that cool. Just it's cool, that greater bit of context there. I think there's a market for that sort of thing. I think that's cool. If like, even if they tied it to like a lore entry, once you activate that lore tab or whatever in your Triumph section, suddenly you can understand Fallen languages. And there are other games that have done things like that, and it's so cool. And I love the way it ties in with the character of Mithrax, who in the initial release of Destiny 2 was just an NPC that you could either kill or let live.
Yeah,
I thought that was one of the coolest initial missions in the game, and I wish they did more stuff like that. And to everybody who let him live, y'all are the real MVP. Really happy that Bungie took that storyline forward with him remembering that you let him live. You saved him from that hive night.
That night.
Yeah, and him returning with the whole 0 hour mission to tell you what's going on in the old tower, them touching your old Siva stuff and all that kind of stuff. It's cool. I want more stuff like that. And I think adding in subtitles like that, I think there's a market for that. I think a lot of players would enjoy it. I certainly, I'd be all over.
Do they subtitle like crazy? And this is just because I don't remember anything about anything. Like if we're walking into a boss fight, do they subtitle like the boss text? Like sometimes enemies talk to us in their language as part of the cutscene, and I just don't recall if that actually occurs in Destiny or not. Like in other games, if it's a different language, sometimes they'll subtitle it for you.
Unless it's in a lore card, it always as subtitles just says "Fallen Chanter" or "Fallen Chatter" or something like that. Like it's never straight up like the actual written text the way it has been since Forsaken. As far as I can tell, like I've never seen it anywhere.
Also, the best stuff happens on Titan. Like Titan's like just the coolest planet in Destiny 2. So like of course Mithrax and all that cool stuff happens on Titan, and he comes up out later. Titan's just the best. It just is.
My big hope for like this sort of thing going forward, like you were saying about how you could unlock like a lore card or something, and then you can go on that. Like I would love to see something like the Corridors of Time puzzle, where the big community event is everybody has to try and learn this language and uncover what all these words mean, and you're going through it and like parsing each of these words and being like, well, this word has a pattern here and you could use it in this part here, and you can unlock different parts and be like, it's actually just a big puzzle. I would love to see something like that. Honestly, it'd be like, oh, my Discord server would be going nuts over that. Like that'd be unbelievably cool. I'd love that. You
have to piece together the message from Mithrax or something like that.
And I think they were starting to do something like that with the transponder. For the outbreak thing, and you could see them like wanting to be like, how far do we push this? Like, how much do we do? We'll just translate it for.
It's still better than putting Fractaline in an obelisk.
True.
For hours.
I think I saw a post that said that it would take like 15 to donate all collectively. Like
15 years collectively is what I'm saying.
Ugh. That's how much of our lives Bungie's taken with this.
So far, they've already taken 6, if I remember correctly. So we got another 9 years, guys.
Oof. And see, I'm trying to think of examples because I know, just going back to the in-game translation sort of thing, I know other games have done that, and I was trying to think of what it was in my head, and I remembered. The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker does that. When you're going through the game and several characters speak the Hylian language to you, and you don't understand what they're saying. But after you've beaten the game and earned something, you can go into like New Game Plus, and suddenly you can understand what all of the Hylian characters are saying to you. And I remember going through that and thinking, this is fantastic. I love being able to see the kind of lore bits and context of that I couldn't understand the first time around. I would love something like that for Destiny. Even if like this is really in depth and I doubt we'd ever get it, but like I said, if you could hit a lore tab or whatnot, suddenly you understand the Fallen language. Your ghost translates it for you. So like all the grunts and shouts and whatnot that fallen enemies do,
so
they
cool.
translate it at the bottom for you. That'd be
so cool.
I would love something like that. I think that'd be really, really cool.
100%.
Definitely a 1% sort of thing. A very small part of the community would probably appreciate that, but I would.
It reminds me of in Bloodborne, I think there's a stat called Insight, and the more you have about see around the world and understand certain enemies, you'd be like, oh, I know what you actually look like, or I can see this ghost thing now. And I think there's some lines you only hear if you've got insight, like from what I remember. But that sort of thing would be cool too if you could put stats into that sort of thing, like just investing in it, and you get back what you're wanting.
That'd be cool. It's
a lot of potential. I love it. I love this sort of stuff. Like
it would have way more potential and a lot more character development, because we're seeing more character development out of NPCs, but we're just kind of starting in game to see more out of our enemies. I mean, obviously there's lore cards, there's entire 7-chapter book of the Book of Sorrows or something like that. So it'd be, God, Bungie's so good at doing these kinds of things, but they do it in such weird backwards ways. And it's like
it's just a budget thing, really, when it comes down to it. It's like, how do we get the producers focus on this and things like that? Like in our Discord server, we have people that have spent probably as much, if not more, time doing what I'm doing for the Fallen, but doing it for hive runes, and they've been
Yeah.
going through it and reading it. Like there's a particular guy, can't remember his name unfortunately, but there's a particular guy who goes through and he's like, well, this language looks like these other languages, and he like I got introduced to him because he said that Savathun means something in a language. He's like, well, this means actually something. We could find the root languages for these things and figure out what these are. And I'm like, this is beyond like anything I can understand, but like I get what you're doing. And it's the same with Ularant, which is the Cabal language. Like we got people interested in going through the game now and trying to find those symbols. Because I remember when what is the scout rifle that you get that's Cabal in Destiny 2? Skyburner's Oath?
Skyburners.
Yeah.
The numbers on that, like I remember a while ago, I was like, that's interesting that they're using symbols. I wonder if they're tied to numbers. And you go through and you're like, okay, let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're comparing it. I went back in Destiny 1 into the Dreadnought, and there's like a little panel that you can see. I think it's one of the ones that you used to open the door to get a quest item. You can look at it and look at these symbols back and forth, and you can see that they literally went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Cool, that's done. Font, and you can see it. You can see it used in other places. So ways of figuring out what their alphabet is, not that like it's particularly one-to-one with their actual language, but we could use that as a font. It's always really cool for transcribing purposes. It's there's a lot going on just now, and there's so many little breadcrumbs that we can see. It's been really fun.
And see, that's where I was gonna go, because of course Elixni's not the only alien race in Destiny. Figuring out what the Cabal are saying, figuring out what the Hive are saying, I think would be huge, given how much of Destiny's lore is tied to them. I would say Vex, but they just seem like mechanic grunts that those guys throw out there.
We have to get their binary code.
Yeah, get the zeros and the ones that they're putting out, and then realize that every Vex is just talking about what they did to your mother as they teabag. Turns out Vex are those guys.
I went back in time and became your grandfather.
I'm your daddy, boy. Headcanon. That's what Athian was saying all the time.
Vex milk.
Drink it. Yeah, see, that's cool. It's cool. There's so many different things that they could do with that. I guess we just have to hope that there's more to that in the future. More to being able to transcribe those languages.
Is there anything hidden in Spider's Fallen?
I think there's been a couple times that he said little words, but I don't think there's been anything particular. I might have one line in my spreadsheet that says, oh, he said this word at some point, but like there's been nothing much. He doesn't tend to say very much Fallen. The closest obviously being, Arha and his other Fallen, I can't remember his name. Fallen names, we're wondering as well, like we're going through this and we're like, well, if you've now constructed it since Forsaken, is there a chance you've looked at the original Fallen names you've done? And so we've gone through like really collecting every Fallen character name we can find and being like, I wonder if this could be turned into something like maybe Varix means like unloyal one or something like that, to be ironic about his seeming betrayal to us. So there's a lot of different options there. But as far as Spider's actual dialogue, it's all English, sadly.
Yeah.
But what about there's a couple missions where he sends his little grunts to help you. They don't have anything interesting to say. The Porcupine Fallen.
As you can imagine, every time I'm going the game and I'm playing with Fallen or playing against Fallen, are you saying anything cool? But as far as I can hear, it's all unique, and I can't imagine they would spend much audio files in there anyway for file size purposes. It's a shame, but it'd be good. It'd be really good if, like, for a mission like that, they had the Fallen like speaking to you and being like, "Hey, that guy over there, he's a scumbag. Our word for scumbag is."
What about the Scorn, as they're closely related, at least on the surface value, to Fallen?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything of significance there? I think the Scorn have. I mean, most of the bosses speak in English or whatever the native language. I would assume for whatever language setting you have. But is there anything that the Scorn have to offer?
I've not listened to them too much because I had that thought a while ago as well, but every time I listen to them, it mostly just sounds like too painful to listen to, and I didn't really want to subject myself to that like for a long period of time. But I think since the combat sound effects, as this Bungie employee said to me for Destiny 1 and 2, for specifically, she said the Fallen and the Cabal, it's all gibberish stuff. I'd imagine that for like an expansion, they wouldn't put too much effort in for the Scorn, which is a shame. But as much as I'd love to go through it and like really listen, I can't imagine it being anything special based on not having any other way of deciphering it. But it could be something there. I don't know.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I figured that with the Scorn, it would just be sort of like the servitors' distorted Fallen chatter.
Mm-hmm.
It could easily be. Like, I haven't listened too closely because they're a bit
Is
I
it,
just
too
wanna
busy
know what
killing them.
saying,
Is-
like Scrooge, be like, come here, bitch.
As you should be.
did they just put the Fallen language through like a delay pedal? Like,
I think could have been that. Yeah.
okay, then that would make sense. Like, so this servitor needs to say something. Just save $5. We got this audio file, and you got that plugin. So just like use that real quick here.
Hit the Audacity
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah.
Batch process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that makes sense for servitors in particular to have a distorted, more metallic, robotic kind of voice, but just be saying fallen things. It's what they are, just fallen.
It would make
Still.
sense.
Really cool stuff there, man. Really cool stuff. I have no idea where to go from here.
Yeah.
I'm still sitting here thinking about trying to figure out what exactly the Hive are saying on a daily basis. But then I wonder, you have to sit here and listen to these audio files very closely to get all the grunts and syllables.
Yeah.
Who's gonna do that with Omnigul Scream?
Yeah.
Not
Oh.
it.
Yeah. Please no.
Not it.
I mean, I could spend a few evenings listening to her dulcet tones.
Oh, beautiful.
The Sounds of Omnigul, a new mixtape by Sarsion.
Be afraid to listen to Savathun or anything related to Savathun because I feel like we would just get tricked and all of a sudden Sarsion would be like an actual hive and like in like the world like running out like clawing at people like a thrall or something. Like maybe it's time to stop before this gets a little bit too crazy.
Pranked, bro. Still, I think there's a lot of cool stuff there. Like, because with the Hive, a lot of whispering goes on in a lot of the darker Hive locations. You can hear them whispering stuff. And if you've never like played with headsets and turned it all the way up, if you're okay with being spooked, do that. Go to the moon, go to the deeper areas, turn your headset all the way up and listen to the ambient sound. You'll hear things being whispered. Really cool stuff. And it'd be awesome to learn exactly what all of that means. I know Nim would be all over that.
Well, there's so many of those
probably a
places
problem.
where they're doing like rituals where like they're on their knees holding their guns above their almost like they're in prayer or something like that. Like there's got to be some kind of crazy kooky things being whispered or hummed under their breaths during situations like that. I mean, I go back to the Dreadnought. There was and even like that one little side mission thing where you had to pick up the scent of the worm and like run to the certain places and like all the crazy things that were going on with that and pick up a worm and like that. There's an awful lot.
Yeah. Happens in
apart.
Garden of Salvation too. Like people in the chat are saying, if you turn your audio all the way up, you'll hear whispering of incantations or something going on in there. Destiny has good audio design.
Yeah, they do.
It's
It really does.
very good audio design. I love
Team's
it.
wonderful.
Really cool stuff. Well, all right. Where are we now? What do we do next, Dan?
Well, we could talk about the news of the week. We had quite the week. We had this week was the reveal of the new cutscene.
Yes.
We had in the TWAB updates on the weapon changes coming to the sandbox next season, which are interesting.
Great. I love
and we got a lot to cover, so we can start going through it if you'd like.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain, Aura?
Izanagi's burden was not easy to acquire for a lot of people. It was a grind for a lot of people.
Yeah.
The catalyst could drive a lot of people insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have your chalice masterworked?
Yeah. yeah. Anyway, I mean, not just getting the catalyst, but actually grinding out the kills for it,
Mm-hmm.
and then the triumph score for whatever it was, 500 or something so kills in the Izami forge. Anyway, I'm getting
Oh
sidetracked.
yeah,
The
Forgot about that.
that was bad.
Izanagi's burden was finally useful, because when it first launched, it was not good in comparison to what was it? Whisper the Worm, I guess
Whisper.
was the top
And even
DPS.
Darcy.
And even to some degree, there's a grenade launcher that leaves things on fire. I hate it, so I never use it. Prospector, is that the one that sets
that's
things
the-
on fire?
That's the fully auto one. I don't know
Doesn't
if
it have a
sets things
burn
on
effect
fire.
associated with it too, or something like that? I think there's something. Anyway,
Right.
Izanagi's finally had its time to shine, which opened up our arsenal for so many other weapons to really enjoy the sandbox. And it got nerfed to hell because Bungie refuses to design encounters where snipers are not useful. And so they continue to make us stand in one spot and shoot at a crit spot. We don't get to have a power fantasy anymore. And I'm tired of it. And I don't think what they do is easy. I'm not going to discredit the Bungie's design team, but make us an encounter where snipers are useless instead of making snipers useless. Period.
100% agree.
Your turn.
That's
my rant.
What do I have to add to that? Izanagi's wasn't bothering anybody. It's just sitting there minding its business, saying, "Hey, I finally got some time in the sunlight now that Big Brother Whisper has been put in his grave again." By the way, and the nerf that it got, for those who don't know, basically, they've changed the animation speed of Honed Edge, and they've replaced Outlaw. This is the big one. This is where the DPS hit comes in. They've replaced Outlaw with no distraction. Outlaw, of course, being the ability that makes it that you get much faster reload speed when you land a precision kill, and no distractions basically makes it so that after you aim for a couple of seconds, you flinch less. That is a huge DPS loss, because the entire point of Izanagi's is reload, fire, reload. Fire.
It's also a 90 RPM sniper, which also got nerfed. So this thing got nerfed in like 3 different ways in one foul swoop.
Yeah, because they're also nerfing snipers in general.
Across the board. Yeah.
And I'm right there with you, buddy. Completely disagree. And you know, it's not like they don't know how to make encounters that don't require you to sit still. Shoot, I think the Inatam fight in the Sundial, I think, is a pretty cool way to add mechanics to an encounter. It at least makes you run around, you know, stand on plates, warp to an area, beat a boss and some enemies, warp back, another damage phase. This is a recurring problem in terms of Destiny. I feel like we've been down this road so many times before, and it's always nerfing what's the most popular, because all boss encounters basically break down to what Aura said. Stand here outside of, you know, harm and hit a crit spot.
I mean, what the boss for Garden of Salvation literally levitates.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
you
what?
Can't get close to him.
What are we? Sword? We're gonna use a sword? Black Talon?
Yeah.
Like,
Now we are.
There, bro.
Because the other thing is, and we'll get into the full breakdown, but grenade launchers also got hit.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The two massive, the two most used DPS weapons for PvE activities got hit. And it's like, they don't want us in a safe spot fighting from afar. We can't get close because of stomp mechanics. So now we got to stand somewhere in the middle and 3-phase everything. Like, where we'll find a way. We'll find formulas. We'll find roles. We'll figure something out.
Absolutely.
The linear fusion rifles might be one of the paths forward here, but like, we're still going to be sitting back. Like, you're not eliminating the problem, because there's still other long range weapons in the ecosystem, and not for nothing, but hitboxes of linear fusion rifles are 8 times the size of hitboxes on sniper rifles. So you're kind of removing and I hate the word skill in Destiny, because bullet magnetism takes almost every ounce of skill out of this game, but you're removing an element of quote unquote skill by making us anyway. I'm going on a tangent. You guys want to break down obviously I'm passionate about this. If you guys want to break down the
you
actual,
should be. It's a bad change.
I think we all should be, because it does change things. To me, this felt more like a stick than a carrot.
Yeah.
Across the board when it came to the changes.
They're beating you with it.
Right. But yeah, so like we have the dev team talking about we'll go through it one by one. Izanagi's and sniper rifles first. Since the removal of auto reload effects from Rally Barricade and Lunafaction boots, as well as the introduction of a catalyst for Izanagi's Burden, it's seen a significant uptick in use. Yes. Izanagi's Burden solidified itself within the majority of in-game builds due to its excellent burst damage, sustained damage, ammo economy due to special ammo, and safety due to being a sniper rifle. The Outlaw trait was swapped out for no distractions to be more in line with the fantasy of the weapon and to ensure the trait on the weapon would still work with Honed Edge. So the animation speed of the Honed Edge is no longer affected by the reload stat. Outlaw has been replaced with no distractions. Going to sniper rifles, we gave sniper rifles an increase in PvE damage back in Shadowkeep. Thank you. We're removing that change for a few reasons. Sniper rifles have a lot of utility and safety due to their range, and the increased damage was giving them too much of a leg up on the closer range counterparts. That gulf only widens as the difficulty of any given encounter goes up. The direct changes to adaptive and rapid fire snipers were to make the differences in the sub-archetypes more impactful again, as well as to give some amount of parity with the adjustments to shotguns and fusion rifles. Damage to major enemies and above have been reduced to pre-Shadowkeep values. That's around 0.20 around 20%. Adaptive snipers precision multiplier has been reduced from 3.25 to 2.95. And rapid fire snipers base impact has been reduced from 100 damage to 90 damage.
Ouch.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder what's coming, though. Like, I assume they would have looked at the new content and thought, well, maybe snipers make this new content too easy. We'll try and calibrate for that. But retroactively, like, it really hurts, you know?
Can't you just raise the HP of the numbers we can't see anyway? Like, can't you just take a boss and be like, well, you're gonna give him 13,000 more health points so that it takes another Izanagi shot to take it down? If there's new content coming that we haven't even seen yet. Like, I feel like there are ways to shadow nerf something versus take weapons that people have put, and metas have to change, and I get it.
Yeah.
Izanagi's was a long grind.
Yes.
And it was painful not only for the people earning it, but it was difficult for the people who are helping people get it.
Mm-hmm.
Heroic Menagerie, when it launched, was not an easy task, man. That boss fight was legit, especially the ogre. Good lord.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, they did this with a couple of things that people put a lot of time and effort into, and I'm tired of unimagined. I think the word that people were saying was that the meta has gotten stale, and I honestly think the meta has not been stale. I think the end game content is what is stale.
Yeah.
The design between the encounters is what is stale. And instead of challenging our developers to push their boundaries more, we're challenging our player base by taking away power fantasy. Like, we are space ninjas. We are supposed to be powerful. We're supposed to one-shot a bunch of stuff. So put more stuff in front of us for us to one-shot. And the only thing that we know is coming are this Grandmaster level Nightfalls. These Nightfalls are just supposed to be insanely difficult. And I can't imagine what knobs they're turning to make these things such, because 980s aren't exactly, I mean,
Nightmare 980s were pretty rough.
Yeah.
Depending on your power level and how deep you are in a season, they can either be they can be somewhat of a cakewalk at the end of seasons, but at launch, first couple of weeks, they're difficult.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at.
It's an entire floor of just barrier champions and unstoppable champions. That's
Rush.
I mean, that's what they've got to do, right? I mean, what else can you do to turn up the difficulty knob on these things?
Add more.
Other than require every single seasonal mod, require players to have every single seasonal mod on. This way you have every advantage you can.
Mm-hmm.
They're already deciding which way we play the game in terms of which weapons can have these mods on it.
Yep.
They can add all three. What is the modifier where all three elements like destroy us but don't do anything additional to the other?
Oh yeah, the new it's that new modifier. I can't think of the
that could play a major part, which again robs Izanagi's of what makes it so special, being a kinetic weapon that deals mass damage. It's not affected by elemental drop-offs. So a lot of it I understand. I think 20% is a steep number.
Yeah.
I want to see what PvP does, because now I don't so the way it's going to work is, as of right now, a 140 with box breathing will one-shot a super in a Crucible.
Mm-hmm.
Once these changes come into effect, it will no longer one-shot a super. Now, a 90 RPM, so your beloved has to have box breathing on it and that perk procced in order for you to one-shot a super. And 72 RPM snipers will one-shot a super bone stock. So your Revoker, Tatara Gaze, there's a handful of other ones that are in there, but those are the two main ones that you see a lot in Crucible. What's the one that's like a tank gun, the new one? The God, they give you like the trophy hunter.
Yeah,
the one you get like 100 times a day. So that's also
once you've earned it. Yeah,
with these zoom scopes that are 100 times, 300 times, like I can see the mitochondria and the eyeball of the guardians I'm shooting at because the zoom is so high. Like so we'll see how all this pans out. But there's a lot of things I'm really curious about. And the one thing that I didn't what's getting a buff? The only buff we saw was auto rifles.
That's it
so far. Yeah. Going down the list, grenade launchers, through a combination of archetype adjustments and new perks being introduced, grenade launchers have been quite powerful ever since Season of the Drifter. We've changed the aggressive frames sub-archetype to the rapid fire sub-archetype to be more in line with the other weapons' established conventions, and slightly reduce their effectiveness on powerful enemies to give other weapons some more breathing room. Lord of Wolves and Last Word got massive changes. Shotguns and fusion rifles, auto rifles. Some small tweaks have been made to give auto rifles a small boost in efficiency to the Crucible, though they also influence PvE. The nature of the way Destiny is played tends to have semi-auto based weaponry be more effective in general, and so we're compensating for that with these tweaks. These are fairly modest changes intended to give auto rifles more of a chance in an open fight, without attempting to drag the TTK to the entire game down. The following impact values have changed with precision frames. 17 to 27.2. That's the default precision damage on those. Previously 17 and 25.5. Adaptive frames 15.75 to 25.2. Default and precision. Previously 13.75 and 22. And rapid fire frame 13.4 to 20.1 default precision, previously 12.5 to 18.75.
I think they mostly kill in one less bullet, roughly.
Yeah.
I think the big one is the 600 RPM. I forget what the technical term for them is, but that's what a lot of people are going to be eyeing up. And there's not many 600 RPM autos in the game. So there's also
Soros is gonna be good. That Monte Carlo.
It's already good, by the way.
Soros
already is insane.
Yeah.
So
Monte Carlo is gonna
Monte Carlo's gonna slap.
So the way that they've changed auto rifles, because we can they're a buff, right? But it's not like an ungodly buff, right?
Yes.
Is it the same team that's doing that that's also doing these nerfs to snipers? Because I feel like
I'd imagine so.
If they're taking it from they're taking it back to pre-Shadowkeep levels, for 2 seasons we've had these changes, right? We've had these sniper changes, and they've seen the damage. The auto rifle bit feels like a nice medium range thing to do. It's not overpowered. It's just going to be like enough damage to make a little bit of a difference in like in a gunfight here and there. But like the sniper changes, there's
dramatic.
There's wiggle room. Like if you already have the stats for like this is pre-Shadowkeep and this is post-Shadowkeep, unless you're also trying to compensate for the increased population based on the game going free to play.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
It's weird, man.
It's confusing.
I've been told that like the sandbox team has had a bit of a reshuffle. Like there's some new people and there's some old people that have been here for a while that have left. I don't know how true it is and how levels of
Mm-hmm.
views come in. But I wonder if they're just trying like to do as much of a shake up as they can gradually to get it to somewhere that they want Destiny to be, like as an entire company. Like it could be that maybe Sandbox was working sort of like independently beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So they might be trying to pull feedback from us, the entire company, for what other activities want certain things to be. Because I can imagine, like, if you're making snipers super powerful and you're trying to design a raid to have, like, as you were mentioning, like every single boss seems to have use snipers, and then that might be getting frustrating for the raid team. And you're making us design things around snipers. Can we maybe have more Gulg type shotgun encounters?
Right. Give us
so that could be what they're trying to do. I can see that. But
Yeah.
as you can say, like, without knowing the context of what's coming, it's really hard to make that call.
Right. And for the changes to snipers, they could also then be making changes to linear fusions that could balance it out, or scouts that could balance it out. I don't know.
I mean,
but
line in the sand is already pretty strong, and it's about to basically take the place of some snipers in this new meta.
Yeah.
This new sandbox.
And
it's interesting. I'm sure I saw Dimji say on Reddit that fighting lion's actually getting a buff.
By default, it's getting the changes that are occurring to grenade launchers are actually affecting fighting lion in a positive direction.
Oh, okay. Right. I wasn't sure like why he was calling that one out specifically as getting a buff, but that would make more sense. Okay.
I think
that's weird how that works.
I forget what it said specifically, but something about like splash damage and direct impact. I forget off the top of my head. I don't have it pulled up here, but there's another thing. Is that the only thing getting a buff is it fighting lion the only thing that was getting? It's a slight change, but
fusions and shotguns are getting a little bit of a buff because they're changing the way they track headshots on them, so that your bolts and your pellet spread don't try to go towards the head and wind up missing things entirely.
But they're taking shotguns is actually a really significant change.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I got out of it was they're making it so that when you ADS, it's not adding any more range to your shot.
Right.
Yep. Which to me means precision frame shotties are going to be the way to go. Your Prophet of Doom, your Retold Tale, and there's probably one other one that I'm missing out. Prophet of Doom coming from Garden of Salvation, which is actually a very good shotgun now. Yeah. It's a good shotgun. It's going to probably be one of the go-tos. And I made a comment on Twitter about fast charge rate fusion rifles might take the place of these Mindbender's ambitions. Mm-hmm. But after using them for a week, they're the most inconsistent weapon on the planet.
Yep.
With bolt pattern. So Zealot's reward, I tried it a few times and I'd either map people or there'd be a guy literally 3 feet in front of me and it wouldn't kill him.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's going to be the case at this point. The fusion rifle change, there's a change to base damage of like what, 0.25x? It's like from 0.75 to 0.50.
They're changing the damage fall off, I want to say.
Yeah. Damage fall off for this weapon archetype can now floor at 0.5x, previously 0.75x.
Yeah.
But it still has a floor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was the gripe the majority of the community had, was the fact that it had a damage floor. Mm-hmm. And they're also, and the other thing they didn't put numbers to was they're changing the damage or how much the range is affected by a high zoom scope. So I use an MS3 scope on my air until now there's going to be less of a range boost due to that zoom. So now your torch and your flash sight might be a better option on your high impact fusions. And MTash had said that this might not nerf Arentil as much as it buffs Wiz and Rebuke, which doesn't have a high zoom scope. Essentially, it could be something where we see more Wizzens in the. But I get, we'll see what damage drop off is. I don't play the long range infusions anyway. I don't know, but it's a whole lot of nerfing, and there was a tweet like a year ago where Bungie's like, we're going to try not to nerf things too much, and we're right back in it again.
Different sandbox team, I guess.
But if what Sarsion's saying is that's a different team now, right? Like,
as far as I've been told,
it's a little bit of a different philosophy probably going forward, and we're seeing that in action.
I'm worried about it though.
Yeah. And I think those comments previously were like, weren't those like right after Wisniewski and Hamrick left as well?
I think it might have been right before then because it was Forsaken, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's they talked about trying, instead of hammering everything down, like taking a look at seeing what makes it unique. And that
Yeah. And
that's
there's
fine then. Now I guess it's different.
a little bit different when it comes to, I guess, the
Yeah.
sandbox now. And I gotta say, I'm a little bit worried about it.
Yeah.
Backup plan is also getting slapped. They're
Mhm.
making it so that having that equipped reduces your the impact archetype of the fusion rifle. I think it brings it down to a rapid fire frame archetype, which is
If the bolt pattern doesn't change, it's not going to matter.
yeah.
So if your Iron Tail has backup plan on it, come this next season, you'll proc your backup plan and you'll have the impact of a Techian Force, which I
Mhm.
think is a 540 charge
Yeah.
rate.
That.
But if your bolt pattern of Iron Tail stays the same, you still stand a chance of most of your bolts connecting, which it might not matter. I mean, backup plan isn't meant for long range engagements. It's meant to be a handheld supernova. It's meant to cut down shotgun rushers at the blink of an eye. So anybody who's using it to try and do range shots isn't using the perk as it's intended anyway. I think if you're using it within its intended range of a backup plan, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to change too much because I think it's all about bolt pattern and bolt spread. And unfortunately, the stability statistic on fusion rifles isn't accurate to how tight the bolt pattern actually is. So
it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how that works out and whether or not it's going to do anything to those higher impact fusion. The one big thing that got a nerf in this that we hadn't talked about yet, the last word is getting slaughtered.
Mhm.
Slaughtered.
good.
Yeah.
Good on PC, not so much for console or controller players who never had a usable last word in Destiny 2.
What?
That's true.
What?
Oh. Yeah, like they're as I recall, they're changing the precision scaler when hip firing. I think they're lowering the damage across the board with it. They're lowering its effective range. Aiming, I think, no longer extends the range on it. They're increasing. The only change, in my opinion, that they really needed to make, they're increasing the amount of kick. They're reducing stability for mouse and keyboard. That's all I think they really needed to do to the last word. The problem with it is right now, and I bet a lot of people who play on maybe Xbox and PS4 were seeing this and saying, but the last word isn't even usable. On PC, it's a laser.
Oh, yeah.
It's a laser that kills faster than almost every other primary in the game. And because mouse and keyboard is so stable, you can do some silly things with it on PC. But that's only on PC, and only because it doesn't kick it that much if you're using mouse and keyboard. In my opinion, all they really needed to do there is just reduce that stability so that it's a little bit more difficult to use with mouse and keyboard and make it a little bit easier to use on controller. The gun is almost like it was, post-patch in D1, post Taken King, where it was completely unusable. And man, like they're changing the damage ceiling for it for precision hip fire and ADS. They're changing the non-precision damage for it. It's last word is getting slapped pretty hard in the coming update, and I don't know exactly how to feel about it.
Yeah.
Although I guess they said to improve the experience, they're adjusting the way I think aim assist is working when you're hip firing, but I don't know how much that's actually going to help with the gun on controller. It's always been bad with the controller. No idea how it's going to work.
I'm not going to lose any sleep over last word getting.
Nope.
So hand cannons. I mean, one of the biggest things, and this caused a little bit of a storm on Twitter, is that there's no changes to 150 hand cannons coming down the pipeline, and there's no buffs coming to 110s or 140s either.
Confirmed.
And a lot of people were upset because they had felt that they had gone through the proper avenues to give feedback saying that 140s, maybe not 110s as much, but 140s should be receiving some form of a buff because there's no reason to use a 140 out over a 150 unless you hit your shot better with that. You stand a better chance at winning a gunfight if someone else misses. And so that caused a bit of a back and forth. But 140 hand cannons, so your Ace of Spades, your Kindled Orchid, just to name a few. I think 10 Paces might be a 140 as well. I think, maybe. I don't know. The big one, I think the big one is Ace of Spades. But no changes to the range on that, no changes to the crit damage on that. And a lot of people in the Crucible world have been looking for a reason to use 140s because they feel good.
They do.
As a controller player, I've been using Kindled Orchid through most of my runs through the forges to get these shaders. And I mean, the Kindle Orchid felt like I was in an earthquake before they made the changes to the animation. And it is I despised it. I really actually hated it. And now it's probably my favorite PvE hand cannon.
It's been my go-to since the Forge came out. Like, it reminded me of the Vanity, which was a Future War gun back in Destiny 1. It was my favorite go-to. It's how it got me through trials, was the Vanity. So Kindle Orchid felt exactly like that. And I've been okay with the changes. I've not noticed too much because I don't pay too much attention to how they've changed it. But
you have too many voices.
The animation is much more crisp and much more controlled. So one of the problems with Kindle Orchid was it would kick in whichever way you were strafing.
Mm-hmm.
It would kind of kick in that direction, and now you can kind of strafe in any direction you want, and the kick pattern is basically the same, at least in PvE. I don't use energy primary weapons in Crucible. It's Arantil, Mindbender's Ambition, and Beloved. Those are the only 3 weapons that exist to me in the energy spot in Crucible. So it has to be a kinetic primary, which I wouldn't use the 140. I'd use this spare rations, or lately I've just been memeing people with Galran's right hand because it's just that bad.
Yeah,
it's just an awful weapon, and dying to it makes people infuriated. So that's why I've been using Galran's. But that's, that was the change. They made a change to the animations for 140s a season ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was
a couple seasons back.
That was, I play controller. It was very helpful for controller players, essentially.
Yeah, I was a little bit bummed to learn that there was no real change coming to those over the course of this next season. I mean, we only got part of the patch notes this week, and generally the way Bungie likes to do it is they like to put all the nerfs in 1 week swabs, and then the following week talk about all the good things they're going to do, so they can get the bad news out of the way. So
they still have abilities to talk about. I mean, handheld Supernova hasn't been discussed yet.
Yep,
and that's a major glaring issue.
I wonder what they're going to do with that. They're not going to make it so that it doesn't one-shot. They want all classes to have at least one-shot ability.
They're going to delete that entire subclass, the whole tree, the whole middle tree Warlock. Tell them plays not to get too comfortable because the entire thing is going to be removed. They're going to come back with Lance.
No,
Bomb.
no,
Yeah, they're going to come back with Lance.
No.
Yep.
Bring it back.
They're going to do some kind of opposite of Blink where like you go to jump, but you just crouch and like poop in place or something. Like, it's going to be great. I can't wait for new Void middle tree for Warlocks. It's going to be wonderful.
You go to Blink, but instead you just create a black hole of yourself, and it just lowers your KD like all the way down to the floor.
Oh no. Such rampant anti-Warlock propaganda. Disgusting.
I'm so happy right now, Laura. You just made me the happiest. Yeah, so like Lord of Wolves is getting a nerf too.
Yeah, that was another glaring thing.
Happy to see it. Goodbye, Lord of Wolves.
Aren't they just reducing the accuracy while Release the Wolves is active?
Yeah, I want to see what it looks like in real time, because it on paper it's like, no, you need to delete the gun. Like, that's not a nerf. You need to remove the gun from existence. But everyone today during chat who was talking about it was saying like it's going to be really hard to control the recoil pattern while you're actively trying to fire if you're engaging from range. So, but I don't know what accuracy on that. Man. There's no accuracy involved. You just like
fired. You just
aim, and then the world burns. So it's like
I want to see it is like, like in the movies when they're firing at a stormtrooper aim. Where
no.
Maybe you're firing at a guy and like it just hits all around him. He's like
makes a silhouette of his body.
Perfect outline.
Yeah.
I would love that. Man, that would be excellent.
See, and the thing is, I love Lord of Wolves because I feel so proud of it, because I feel like I was the only person well before Lord of Wolves got its initial change who was telling people this thing is going to be a problem. When Forsaken came out, I got Lord of Wolves very early into it and took it into the Crucible and was like instantly, oh no, I don't think anyone realizes what they've done with this gun. And it flew under the radar forever. I was telling people for the longest time, Lord of Wolves, people from my streams will understand this, Lord of Wolves doesn't care. You're in a super, you're a striker, Lord of Wolves doesn't care. You just activated Blade Barrage, Lord of Wolves doesn't care. And when they made that change, I can remember when the TWAB came out and Bungie was like, we hear people's complaints about Lord of Wolves and it being inconsistent and wasting ammo. So we're making it so you can activate Release the Wolves on its own. I was like, is there no one there testing this thing?
You know,
They don't realize what they've done.
You know it's bad when they make an emblem about it.
Yeah.
They would have to giving an emblem because you survived Lord of Wolves. What was it, Iron Banner or something like that?
Iron Banner where everybody was using it.
They need to give us a DLC because we lived through that, not an emblem. Okay,
Veterans DLC.
A Veterans DLC where if you lived through that, you get the game the next season for free because. I mean, it's still a problem, and it's probably going to be a bit more popular now as people kind of like get it out of their system heading into the next season. But I mean, like, what are we talking about in terms of? Well, thankfully, Fallout Plays made a new video on accuracy. But like, are they reducing the cone of accuracy? Are they making it wider so that
we
like
don't know what it means?
Yeah.
Where's the point at which your aim assist value goes to 0 where you're beyond the range where accuracy will actually help you? Like, what are the numbers behind this? Like the numbers, Mason, where are they? So like on paper, it really was one of the most lackluster things I've read in its WAB. It was like, we've reduced the accuracy, and you're just like,
it's like, don't worry.
This game, the gun already appears like nobody aims it to begin with. What do you mean accuracy? Like there's no accuracy involved in the weapon. Like
just point and blow everything away. And
it's fire vomit. That's all it is.
Such a strong weapon, such a stupidly strong weapon. And I'm glad everybody eventually realized what a monster the Lord of Wolves is at the stupid ranges it can get with Release the Wolves active. I still make the argument. I wish they would just have reverted the change they made. Requiring a kill before you can get that extended range and blow all your ammo, I think was probably around the right level of balance for a gun like the Lord of Wolves. Cut down on its ammo so that you don't get max ammo unless you've already gotten a kill, and then you get the Release the Wolves perk for a couple of seconds. But I'm still worried about it because you can still activate Release the Wolves instantly. That means if you're running shotgun scavenger perks, like every green brick is going to get you, what is it, like 30, 40, 50 shots? It's a nasty gun. And them just saying they're reducing the accuracy for people who use mouse and keyboard, so what?
They're deleting your mouse.
Is that what's in next week's patch notes? Bungie's deleting your mouse.
It just sends a line of code that just breaks your mouse. So you have to do something else.
If you Lord of Wolves and fire it, your mouse just disintegrates. It gets Thanos snapped away.
It's either Thanos snapped or a Nintendo Direct, one of the two. Let's see.
Yeah, who knows what it means? I love my Lord of Wolves. I was there first. I tried to warn you. I tried to warn all of you.
Did you guys watch that Fallout video about range as a perk? And how did you feel about it?
It was a combination of it all kind of started with Cool Guy's video about Aaron's Hill, and that spiraled into Drewski's video, which then moved on to Fallout's. It became this trifecta of information, and it's a lot to digest.
Yep.
I watched it a few times over to really get it, but it's one thing to watch the video and interpret it, and then to see it in game. And using the Galran's right hand is anything that fires multiple projectiles somewhat rapidly. It's the slowest firing auto rifle in the game, but you can actually see their information at work and at play, and you can actually feel it at play with aim assist, and how it really kind of like disengages at range where you realize that you're outside of your cone of accuracy and your cone of aim assist, and even paying attention to the crosshairs,
the reticle,
and how the cross and the circle that goes in between the crosshairs itself. It was pretty eye-opening, and the funniest thing to me is like I look at that every day.
Yeah,
I look at my crosshairs and I look at the way that the circle around the crosshairs, like I've seen that every single day, and I know that I've felt that it meant something, and it was just kind of cool that it's information. It's almost kind of like your Fallen stuff where it's right there in front of us.
Yeah.
And how many of us actually paid attention to it?
Yep.
You know, like that data is right there. So I thought it was, I mean, shout out to Fallout. It was an incredible video. If you guys haven't seen it.
Yeah.
it's very well done, and of course, it's going to change in about 3 weeks.
Yep.
It's all going to change.
Stability meta coming in, boys. I'm ready.
The joys of content creation. It all goes bad sometime.
It's just more content to talk about.
Exactly.
There you go. That's the way to look at it.
You got to get new milk sometimes, right?
Oof. All right. So was that all the major changes in terms of sandbox that we had?
Those were the major changes that were talked about in the TWAB. Other than that, we did get an update about the stocks and the bonds and the stonks. That currently we are at 7.9 billion out of the 9,777,777,777. So this week, yeah, you think this week is the time that we're gonna get it?
People are donating at an alarming rate, and I think a lot of people are just waiting for Spider to have a good transaction day, which he hasn't all week.
Oh man, we are getting cut by the Spider.
Yeah, I think the first day we get a good transaction period, you're gonna see quite a bit. I mean, it's Sunday. We still have like another withdrawal day that we get. We still get to pull Fractaline on Tuesday, albeit not as much as our full donate. So we're gonna get it.
We're gonna.
Yeah,
get
I think so too.
Thought we were gonna get it within half hour of looking at what it was at today. And I put my 300 or 400 in, doing my part. So
yeah. So have you guys gotten any like interesting roles out of donating to the obelisk? I personally myself have gotten I got the God roll Breach Light, and I started using that in Iron Banner this week, and whoo boy, that was fun.
What's the God roll Breach Light?
The one that I got, and according to like a Forbes article, this was the guy.
Forbes.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Vorpal, Demolitionist, Appended Mag, with Fluted Barrel, and Hammer Forged Rifling with a Masterwork of Range. And so I've been using that to plow kids over and bury them in the ground in Iron Banner, and it's been very nice on console. Haven't used it on PC yet, because why would you play Iron Banner on PC?
Oh, don't
do that. And so I've been having a lot of fun with that, and I got 5 line in the sands. I got 5 lines in the sand that are the rapid hit firing line. Yeah. I got
hold on to those.
Yeah, I think I turned in over 100 of the perfect paradoxes. I still need to go through those, but
I've got like 5 or 6 God roll perfect paradoxes, but I'm getting, depending what character you use, depends on whether or not you want 1-2 punch or trench barrel.
Yeah, you're thinking of the shotgun that had a threat level.
Yeah. So that's that. There's that. I have 2 steel feather repeaters. One is subsistence swashbuckler with a 69 round magazine. So if you think about it, I'm gonna have 69 rounds to start with. I'm gonna get swashbuckler times 5, and I'm gonna continuously put rounds back in the gun.
Yep.
So that's kind of like a mini sweet business.
Okay.
And then there's a crucible roll, which is multi kill clip feeding frenzy, which is insane as well.
Okay.
For steel feather, which is really cool. And I just like using auto rifles in Crucible because they're just fun, even if they're bad. It's just fun. And I've got the line in the sand finished. I don't know what else is really worth. I just don't like sidearms. I'm just not a sidearm fan. So I haven't gone after Breach Light or there's another one too. Yeah. That's really about it.
Yeah.
Sarsion?
I've been getting lots of legendary shards.
That's right.
Actually playing the game right. There we go.
That's right.
Cheers, sir.
Yeah, I barely ever have any room in my vault, so I get rid of everything in my postmaster. It's too much effort to go through and dim and actually sorting any of my stuff. way
Same.
too busy just now with the college. It's supposed to be college. I'm maybe focusing too much on Elixir, but yeah, college. I'm doing lots of coursework.
College. Yes, college.
Yeah, I'd say it's about the same for me. I'm just blowing through bounties and using it more as an EXP farm than anything else. Because it's actually not a bad way to level up. If you invested for a couple of weeks, you've probably got tens of thousands of polarized fractal line. That's a fair EXP if you're lagging behind on your season pass. It'll get you quite a few levels. So
Got me there, yeah.
Yeah, I think I have like when I finally got around to editing the podcast this week, that's all I did the entire time. Like I was listening to the podcast, listening for the trouble areas, and then just turning in Fractalin just for that entire time. It's I can see how they're going to take 15 years out of us. I can see. Yep.
I basically refused more than a handful at a time, and like you know what, dude, I'm sorry, flaw in design. It's just. And for a lot of people, they'll macro it. I see. There's a couple clips on Twitter, like broadcasters hitting their stream deck, and it just like there's a process that does it for them and stuff, like, which is great. But like, I just shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, shouldn't have to be a thing.
I think Josh Hunt from Destiny Sets is has published his for people to use. So if you're out there wanting that macro, go look him up. Excellent dude on the internet. Outside of that, I don't know. Yeah, that's I think that's pretty much
all
what
the
we
news
got this week
when
it comes to news. So yeah,
I mean, Iron Banner's happening, but nobody wants to talk about that.
Yeah, has anybody dove into Iron Banner this week?
No,
not at all.
I haven't touched Iron Banner in a while.
I did my
that's a lie. I played with Tessa.
And
Cab and Jebby, and then I went on PlayStation 4 and I played with Chibi Kim, and we matched the Big Show.
Oh,
Paul!
We matched the Big Show. As a matter of fact, the Big Show uses Erentil.
He's a man.
Keep talking trash, y'all. That man will put you all the way through the earth, out the other side.
Because he's the Big Show.
That's right. The big man show tonight.
Fucking A. That's awesome.
I love that he is such a huge Destiny fan. And he's not the only celebrity that is. Like, almost all of the voice actors in this game play this game.
Yeah.
And they're all warlocks, by the way. Y'all can hold it forever.
Or I just proved you wrong. Paul, a.k.a. the Big Show, was a hunter.
He's just the biggest one.
He was on a hunter.
But like Nathan Fillion, he plays. I don't know if Gabby, but Zavala's voice actor, he plays. He does a lot. He's done some periscopes where he's sitting there playing Destiny. It's great. I love it. So many people play this game, and it makes me happy.
His Twitter feed is excellent.
Yeah, Lance Reddick's Twitter feed is.
Oh man, but yeah. So
Ice-T plays. That's right.
Ice-T, yeah.
Although he plays a lot of games. Ice-T has been a gamer for as long as games have existed. So
he's a voice in Borderlands 3. He plays a teddy bear.
Oh man, he's great.
Yeah,
he's great as is it Baymax? No,
Baymax,
I'm thinking of. Is it Baymax?
Isn't it? I thought it was.
Or maybe it is.
I think so.
I feel like I'm getting that mixed up with Big Hero 6, but I don't know. But he plays a great teddy bear narrator.
I don't know.
But he's great.
We're gonna get a correction, or our first correction email on that.
Yeah.
Our first?
Somebody will get that.
A correction.
A correction. Whatever. Ice-T's great in Borderlands 3.
Yeah, he's great. But yeah, so I think it's time for us to move into questions.
Let's do it. Baylex, thank you, chat.
Baylex, yeah, there we go. BG.
So the person who's writing that angry email right now, stop it. We already got it. Baylex. It's close to Baymax.
They stopped listening.
The mix up.
They paused the podcast and just were like, I'm going to write this letter now.
I have to be right. Like the moment I said Baymax, their eyes filled with blood, just went completely bloodshot and red and rage filled. They've
sent it off.
Tapping away.
It is in our email right now. They did not listen to the correction that was done in chat.
I appreciate your dedication.
So a question was asked earlier from Carolina Gamer, he was talking a little bit about like how he felt that nothing really was challenging in the game, and a lot of it had to do with the artifact. How would you guys feel? How do you guys feel about the artifact as it is right now, and what changes to it would you like to see if they were to name some next TWAB for next season?
Before we go too far into this,
Okay.
For anyone out there who doesn't know who Carolina Gamer is, he was it world's first Garden of it was X Black was Garden of Salvation. It was world's first Crown of Sorrow.
Right.
Right.
And he also held the Eater of World speed.
Right.
Yeah.
And he soloed Axis in D1.
Yeah.
And Carolina Gamer is a top 0.1% player.
Yeah.
He is a phenomenal. First of all, he's a phenomenal person. He's an awesome person.
Yeah.
He's an insanely good player. There's not a lot that's going to challenge Carolina.
Nope.
There's not. So like outside of soloing certain things or two-manning things, that man's skill set is so far and above the vast majority of players.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the question is a little bit it's like the artifact is there for solo players. The artifact leveling is there for players who don't get opportunities to do endgame activities, or for players who don't think endgame activities are worth it. That's me.
Okay.
Yep. Same.
Nightmare hunts and nightfalls, and they have lost all of their value. And not because I'm gaining my power level through other things, because there's no actual activity that. Where do they matter? What is 970's base power this season?
970 is top. It's where you top out.
Right, the very top out. Right. Before
pinnacles.
the artifact, then the artifact kicks in, and you go above that. There's no activity in this game I couldn't do at 950 right now.
Right.
Yep.
I could do a 980 Nightmare Hunt, a 980 Nightfall at 950, and I'd be fine. Right. So I understand why a lot of people don't want artifact leveling, but I think you're removing a large portion of the player base if you take that out.
Yeah. What about you, Sarsion?
What things I would like for the artifact, or what I don't like about it?
Yeah, just your thoughts.
Just riff.
I really like the charge with light stuff. A lot of my builds, I've like focused a lot of stuff on that because there's some interesting things you can do. Like I've done like a few Riven runs to try and like see if the charge with light does anything interesting, and there's like a lot of damage buff you can get with it. Like you could like do one phase of Riven like really quickly if everybody's got that like focused up. Like I like stuff like that where you can min-max your build to do stuff like that, but I can see why, like I think I remember seeing somebody saying that they just really didn't like it purely because you couldn't do anything in PvP with it. So I don't know.
Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. Charge with light in Crucible is wild.
Okay.
But it requires a few different mods to get there. It's not one mod that you use. But to give you an idea, if you're charged with light, Arbalist will one-shot body. Le Monarch will one-shot crit. Erentil, if you think Erentil range is bad now, if you're charged with light, Erentil will hit somebody in the tower and kill them. So charged with light absolutely functions in the Crucible.
I guess there's just certain cases that you need to like stack up and get ready for it. I guess that's more what he was getting at.
It's a build. It's a very specific build, and there's things you have to do in order to get to that point. But it's wild if you do. The thing is, I think it's so wild that you bring up Charge with Light because you're the only one who's talked about it.
Yep.
Most people don't even realize that it exists and do not utilize its perks at all. Like this season's mods have been gone like right under the radar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Way under the radar.
I don't know how to trigger them. I'm just going to say that right now.
I think that's why they've gone under the radar, because unlike last season where it was just like, put this on and it activates over the natural course of play. Like you're standing near the tower things in Garden of Salvation, you get the buff. You're tethered to things, you get the buff. This season, like you have to put on a specific series of mods in order to activate Charge with Light and then start getting the benefits from it. I think it's been a little bit more than the average player is willing to learn.
Sure.
A little bit more effort than I think a lot of
it
people.
Really is the most minimal amount of like building anybody's ever had to do, but because no one ever does builds in Destiny, like outside of like intellect, discipline, and strength, like nobody wants to put forth that effort. But
Yeah.
It's powerful friends. Oh god, I did the whole build with Fallout because we were part of the YouTube video where we were showing people how insanely stupid this was, but it works. And apparently these mods aren't going away next season
I
either.
hope not. Yeah.
No, they're sticking around for at least the next 2 seasons.
So
Yes.
the armor pieces that we're getting, the armor pieces that we have from Undying, we'll be able to slot the mods from this season. The stuff that we got from Dawn will be able to slot Undying and whatever with Worthy, or what we're thinking is called Worthy. So they're kind of like in the sweet spot. Them and Worthy are kind of in the sweet spot where they're going to be able to grab a little bit from previous and a little bit from after in order to combine your mods in an interesting way.
Yeah, but they're strong. Like those mods are really strong, and people I think just haven't taken the time to actually
looking
play
at.
around with. Yeah.
So you unphased Driven, huh?
Yeah, like not solo, but
Right. Well, the reason I ask is that with a lot of the changes that they made, it's actually been a little bit more difficult, especially with supers not stacking, or well, like tether and tractor cannon, like debuffs not stacking and buffs not stacking. It's actually been harder to do for a lot of people than, and I think one of the things that never even crossed my mind in trying to pursue that was even using the seasonal mods. Never even thought about it.
It's definitely worked for us, yeah. Like I think we had maybe only 2 really given a crap about it, and like people managed to do it.
Okay. So maybe that begs the question, like maybe some of these changes that we're seeing have to do with maybe some of the armor mods that we'll see next season.
Could very well be.
Artifact stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever do mods that specifically target certain weapon things like that? So like somehow returning Izanagi's back to how it was just now, like anything that would sort of boost that. Because I can see how they could maybe implement things like that, but
yeah,
it could be a bit much.
Maybe
because then everybody would just rock it all the time.
Well, it would still fit in the FOMO because you'd have to be there for that season to grab it.
I can see them doing it then.
They're not really, other than like anti-barrier and unstoppable and whatnot, there hasn't been too many things that were specific to weapons that were weapon damage enhancing. There's enhanced reloader perks for snipers and hand cannons. I think there are enhanced targeting perks, that kind of thing, which will affect damage, but not in a direct, not in buffing the weapon itself in terms of the bullet, but in terms of how much damage output you can put out.
Yeah,
I don't see those going away. I wonder if they're going to take enhanced sniper reloader out of the pool. I guess it would still be around because that came with Undying, right? The first time we got a seasonal artifact.
I think so. Yeah.
So I wonder if it's running its course, but that would be one of the ways that they can make up for it. It'd be really odd if they were like, we're gonna nerf snipers 20%. Here's a mod that you can put on a sniper that buffs it 20%.
25%.
Like, right. Like,
go, bro.
That'd be odd to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I we'll see. I'm wondering, like, Charge with Light is actually really good, and I wonder what other things they have coming down the pipeline that they could use. I mean, obviously, some of the mods for the Dreambane mods where you're doing more damage on the moon, or in Garden of Salvation with the Relay Defender, and I'd never used the Tether mod because we're so overpowered for that raid at that point now. But for people who aren't as familiar with it, might be something that's beneficial. We'll see. I'm always excited to see how Bungie gets creative, because I would have long since one of two things would have happened. I would have been out of ideas that were good, or I would have come up with ideas that were so incredibly broken that they would have been like, dude, you just need to stop saying stuff. Like, no, we can't. We can't create a gun that actually turns the entire EDZ into a fire.
Yeah,
like,
we need you to also pack up your things. And
yeah,
we're gonna escort you out
we're just
yeah.
Like that would be it with me. I'd be like, I have nothing, or I'd create a gun that burned an entire planet. Like,
yeah,
there you go, bro.
Rasputin, that's right up your alley.
I'm not messing with Rasputin. If there's a side to be on, I'm with him. I am Team Rasputin.
I don't know.
You're on your own, Osiris.
Osiris might be the only warlock I agree with. I love you, TBL.
Excuse me.
And
I feel attacked.
Sarsion, we just met, so.
What
What about all those
do
raids we did?
I know.
you main, Sarsion? What character do you mean?
Warlock.
God,
Correct.
I mean, who else is going to spend hours and hours and days and months looking at Elixir language than
Of
Warlock?
course.
Big brain.
Of course.
Well, attempt.
Moving on to other questions, we have Butt Coffee. If Trials under-delivers next season, or the PvP community implodes over it, do you guys think it will have a direct negative impact on the player base across the board?
Well, we've seen this before, like in Destiny 1.
Yeah.
And even in the beginning of Destiny 2, Trials of the 9, like that exact thing happened. So if Trials shows up and it's not what everybody's wanting it to be, like I don't know whether they need it to be exactly as it was like House of Wolves, or if they need to like really change it up to be more interested and more rewarding, and just take what the base was and just expand on it with like multiple different layers. I'm really hoping that they really deliver on it, but I can see it splintering a lot of community.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I mean, the player base is going to start out strong and shrink down to nothing by the end of the season, regardless.
Yep.
So
how it goes.
The scenarios happened before, and I think the only perfect scenario here would be if somehow Bungie reached through time to the summer of 2015, pulled the House of Wolves meta in Trials of Osiris and shoved it into Destiny 2. That's the only perfect scenario, and that's not going to happen.
What if they bring back Trials, but they bring it back in Destiny 1?
Yeah, they bring.
Oh my god,
a massive update goes to Destiny 1.
Players would be pissed.
2015 meta, House of Wolves. Oh my god.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the only perfect scenario, and since that's
the only
option,
that's it.
It's the only thing. We got to get into the Infinite Forest and make it happen.
It's going to be met with negativity regardless, because that's kind of just where we're at in this game. Unfortunately, it can be really, really good, and people are just going to find that one minor thing about it that's going to be the gripe. And it's going to come back to the teams being proactive in handling cheaters, DDoSers, and trying to find a way to deal with the hackers. And I just don't think a $10 paywall is going to be enough.
Yeah. I see no way in which this isn't a mess.
Right. M. Mills, good old M. Mills, asks, question for later. With the changes to DPS heavy weapons, could we see a return to mechanic heavy bosses like Oryx or Spire of Stars, and are we okay with that?
Yes,
we're not going to get a raid, so it'd be a limited. Yeah. It'd be a limited mechanic anyway, and the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite bosses were Oryx and Axis.
I'm okay with that. I think a lot of people aren't, but
yeah.
I remember watching an ESO stream, and they're like, "We're doing a raid," and it was like a 45-minute, crazy switches, and like that was a mechanic heavy raid. Like that made Spire of Stars look like Chuck E. Cheese, like a skee ball shoot. Like it was nothing. But I'm yes, give me mechanics. I love that idea.
I think rather than nerfing everything in sight that players are using, change the way your encounters work. Make it so that damaging bosses is contingent upon mechanics like Oryx. You couldn't beat Oryx with weapons. You had to run the mechanics to deal damage. I think that works fine.
Yeah.
So we sticking with just plates? I mean, like the only mechanics that ever seem to be plates, even Oryx, it's mostly stand on a plate.
Plates and balls. Plates and balls.
Stand on the plate and touch the ball, bro.
Batteries. And,
I mean, Bungie has a history of kind of reaching back, because especially as like being their own studio. So like, what if there were a situation where we have to grab batteries and throw them at the boss in order to do damage instead of standing on a plate, kind of thing. I mean, I always go back to like, dude, when are we going to have this crazy encounter where we have to build the gun that's going to do the damage? Like, we're fighting the Cabal. There are these big, massive tanks. They're immune. So we got to go and build a Cabal weapon in this encounter, fighting off like the Legionaries in order to do it. Like where's that? Where's us building a railgun and then having somebody get in it and miss the shot, which is probably going to be me? Like,
Kick
Where's
him!
that?
Wait, they
Yes.
had that in Wrath of the Machine, right?
Yeah,
Like with
well,
building the
yeah, you had to
Zamboni?
build the engine.
The
Yeah.
Zamboni, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that was like that was almost like a relay race kind of thing, and everyone used that as an example. But that encounter kind of drove me crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's probably
So
because of the
tight.
frame rate, I would say.
Right? Yeah, I might have had something to do with it because I'm running in 3 frames, and it's like
Yeah.
you're running out of time. It's like I can't. Hello, I can't.
Literally can't.
But like, that's what I mean. Like, when are we going to assemble a weapon that we actually use against a boss? Because that would be something that would be unique.
Yeah.
And the other thing I had was with the Scorn Raid was like, we're running from this giant scream and we have to find a way to keep it alive, or if it
Yeah.
blows up, it wipes us. Like,
Wipes
so like, where's all
everybody.
these other things that we could be doing where
Got to drain
they
the
involve
fluid.
moving, running, and gunning? This is such a
Drain- yeah,
wonderfully
you gotta
fast-paced weapon or a game.
Drink the
So like,
pus.
You got to drain the pus. You got to drain the
Yeah.
explosive pus,
Keep it-
or else it
something
explodes.
It's
that's-
exploding.
I don't want to talk about that ever again.
No, come on, let's talk about it.
It's happening. And
That was the last time Sarsion was ever on the podcast.
Drain the pus, bro.
I love
Drain
talking
the-
about draining puns. Like I'm here every
God, oh my
If this is
God.
every week.
Muck
YouTube
at
channels about
TLS.
Yes. Ah.
Hey, like
So same time next week, yeah. We're
Yeah,
doing
sounds great. Sounds great.
and
What's
we've
the-
even had
what's the fallen
mechanics.
word for pus? Don't answer that. Don't answer
Oh.
that.
Oh boy.
Well, we are debating about what the word matter means, so it could be pus.
Oh no.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Desmeraldo, I'm shaping an arc here. How would you feel if there isn't a new raid this spring? And how does Skolas 2.5 and Trials come back?
I mean, we
Start
killed
with a guest
Skolas
on
like
this
4 times now. We even killed his
Yeah.
nightmare, right?
Yeah,
He ain't coming back.
There's nothing left of him.
Prison
What
of
do you think,
Elders.
Sarsion?
I would like him back just for language.
Well, yeah.
Please.
Seems a given.
This
Talk
guy's
to
got a
me.
vested interest over here.
A little biased.
A little biased. But
There's not going to be a raid, I don't think.
yeah.
I would be highly surprised if there was one. So I have no real expectation for that. We talked about trials. Outside of that perfect scenario, it's probably going to be a mess.
Prison of Elders was a 3-person activity, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And is that what a lot of people think is going to be the next?
Some people are pointing to that, yes.
Mm.
Some people are thinking that maybe we'll see Prison of Elders come back. I think a lot of people who liked Prison of Elders have really deep rose-colored glasses.
I hated Prison of Elders. Despised it.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I liked the hard version of it. But it wasn't like, and after they started adding like the point system to it, that was interesting. But I think the events that they've added each season build on and are better than that as a base in the system in the game.
I could agree.
So, yeah.
I think so. Yeah, the horde modes. I think Menagerie is a better Prison of Elders.
Yeah. Menagerie.
Every facet, actually. Encounters, bosses, and especially loot system.
Yeah.
God, I don't know why the Menagerie's loot system isn't in every repeatable activity. That's so good. Probably the best loot system Bungie has designed since the raid normal mode, hard mode tier of drop.
Yeah.
I really want to know what the PvE activity is going to be, and I'm like, because I think more of next season's success rides on that than any version of trials that could come
PvE
forward.
side of it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the PvP sweats are like super excited about trials, but I don't know that many of the casual players could give 2 fly-ins about what's going on in the Crucible world right now, especially with so much hate being spewed towards the meta and one-hit kill abilities and weapons that are strong and whatnot. Like, I think a large portion of what the success means is going to be, and like if it's wouldn't Prison of Elders involve an entirely new like space to fly into? Like, how many more spots on the map can we get? Would they stick it in a planet? There's no reef.
Right.
Well, I mean, we have that strike in the Prison of Elders.
We have the strike, so we at least have one section of it, or we have 2. We have the treasure room as well.
treasure room, and the fallen room.
Yeah.
What if instead of just it being like a specific PvE activity, what if they expanded Gambit and like had it be a PvE VP focus, and then it, because I know Gambit's like one of those things that everyone's like, you either love it or you hate it. But I can imagine, like it's not really been touched since Forsaken. I don't think.
Yeah.
Like obviously, it's where it really kicked off. But like, I can feel like they might do more with it now that they know more what they're doing with it.
They talked about like there has to be one Gambit to rule them all, right?
Mm-hmm.
They talked about that when Luke Smith was doing the rundown pre Shadowkeep, and so I can't see them expanding it. I can see them contracting it, not in a bad way, but like, I can see them like pulling it in a little bit and saying, okay, this mode, Gambit Prime, is the Gambit mode that we want in the game. That is what we're going to push forward for the rest of Destiny 2's lifespan. And maybe they use that extra space for something else, even if that creates extra space for anything.
Well,
I
don't think they need extra room because Sundial is going away.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like Vex Offensive went away. And so I think whatever is going to be coming in is going to be that size. They're not going to give us anything larger. There's certainly, I don't think, while Destiny 2 is active, I'm not sure we're going to see Gambit Prime or Gambit be the one.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that being a change that they make if we get a Destiny 3. I'm not sure the resources, or because it's already existing, it's already got its own loophole, it's already got its own instance that's pertains to it, and it's got its own NPC vendor. Like I feel like that would be a pretty significant overhaul on the backside of things, and I don't think they need any more room yet. Now, if a new raid comes down the pipeline, maybe they sacrifice Gambit Prime for a new raid, but I don't think we're seeing anything like that until September for lucky, if even then.
Maybe this summer, but probably not.
No, this summer is going to be a Solstice of Heroes event where everything is brought forward, and random roles are given to things like Midnight Coup and Alone as God, and everyone goes back and has reasons to run everything, and
they bring back the Age of Triumph stuff.
Yeah, that's what summer's going to be.
Are you listening to this guy? You should.
That's what summer's probably going to entail. I don't think we're going to get anything. And again, I'm not sure that it's worth it. Return on investment. How much money is Bungie actually making? By the way, my first ever microtransaction occurred this week. I bought the Omelon ship.
Hey!
Rejoice.
It finally happened.
It happened.
One of us.
Yeah. First ever microtransaction. It was the 1,000 silver that Bungie gave us like at Destiny 2's launch. But I finally
used it.
Yeah. Freaking pay to win, dude.
Oh man.
Next season we get the Grandmaster Nightfalls.
Yep.
That'll feed your hardcores, and I don't know what they're going to attach to that as a reward. Maybe you get 4 pinnacles.
It had better be something.
It's got to be something. And then
a full auto mountaintop.
After the nerf to grenade launchers.
Oh no!
A full auto it'll be a full auto Izanagi's that shoots grenade launcher shots and sniper shots at the same time.
It's gonna be like a Torg weapon from Borderlands.
Yeah. Mr. Torg is proud.
Yeah. And whatever the 6-man activity is, Mills brought up that if we're possibility of going back to Mars, a sequel to the Braytech stuff, then an update to EP, possibly something along those lines. I could see that becoming a thing. Maybe an EP that has its own space.
That's probably not going to happen.
Yeah,
I think it'd probably just be updated bosses and whatnot in EP.
Right.
Which is cool. I like EP.
Yeah.
I just did one today.
It's still fun. Somehow
it was 3 of us. 3 of us did all the way through 7. Shout out to Ren. You're a god tier PvE player. Blueberry, random Blueberry. Good player.
Nice work.
Hey. And final question of the evening comes from Gray Fox 2K30. With the changes, nerfs, and the possible arrival of a long-forgotten PvP activity, are we going into the next season in a worse spot than last season?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah.
Last season was Undying. And
it was Undying and Shadowkeep. We have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we're thinking just
Shadowkeep was very good.
season content,
Right.
Yeah.
Separate on Season of the Undying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Shadowkeep
Undying
release.
was terrible.
We
last
had to
season
do
was
that when we
worse.
did our review of that, is separate
Right.
Shadowkeep out from Undying. And when we
That's
did
right,
that, Undying had very little going for it.
Yeah.
And we couldn't really I think we had an issue trying to separate what was in Shadowkeep and what was in Undying. This season, we actually see those roots kind of take hold and grow, where I feel like this past 3 months we had way more to do than we did in Undying.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. This season was I still, despite the fact that the player base is at the lowest point it's probably been in a long time, I think this season was actually good.
Yeah.
And like a lot of things in business, I think you're seeing the result of last season's impact this season.
Yeah.
Undying might have been what caused some of the player base to drop this season. And because this season was actually good, maybe we see a bit more a bump in the season upcoming. I think is it Season of the Savior? What is the season even called?
Well, this is Season of the Dawn.
Season of the Dawn was good. It's a good season, worth $10. Bungie did a good job with it.
Yeah. So, I don't know, Sarsion,
Yeah,
what do you
not
think?
bad.
I liked Undying, but like you're saying, it's hard to really tell what was Shadowkeep, what was Undying. Like I liked the Vex Offensive. I didn't really do much more than what everybody had to do for the minimum, like 3 runs of the
No. Why would you?
Undying Mind. You know, like
No.
didn't do very much of it, but like I like how I don't know how much they took on board from that season for Season of Dawn,
Right.
but you can see that there was a definite evolution, and I wonder if like I know we can look at it and say Undying cost like $10 or anything, something like that, but I feel like a lot of the cost from Undying kind of transferred over into Dawn. Like I know it's a la carte, but I do feel like you can see how I could see Dawn was worth $15. You know, like I can see there's a sort of leeway there with in terms of content, because I think there was something to do like every other week, like something new that they were releasing and slow burning, and it's a good way of doing it.
They did a much
really
better
was when you look back at all the things they did, like really big keystone things, like nowhere near as crazy as the stuff that happened in Undying. And it's like we have an entirely new NPC. We've got like a lot more interesting lore. We had like a huge puzzle that was, you know, I don't know if I want to bring it up again, seeing as but you know, like we had a lot of interesting things, and yeah, a lot of those things can be done better, and we probably will see the fruits of the labor of this last season. You know, like I can see them really like thinking about it and pushing forward. Probably on all fronts. I can imagine PvE, Gambit, and PvP. I think they really noticed that their community is split, and they really need to focus on all 3 sections of it. Even if everybody hates Gambit, apart from me, because I killed myself to get Reckoner. But yeah, it's a nightmare run. But
Reckoner, that was something.
That was bad.
He says wistfully
I think I'd rather
into the
do Reckoner
microphone
again than Undying. I mean, Vex Offensive was just.
It was
I think one of the things we didn't talk enough about was the fact that the boss during the Sundial changed. With different attacks, and then as we got to the final boss, it combined all the powers of that boss of those 3 attacks. And then when we got to the end of Undying and we got the Undying Mind, and it was like they were like copy paste, like, and then it just comes in. It's like, what's up, dude? Then you shot it, and like that was it.
Oh, okay.
That was the end, and we had the one Undying Vex guy for the first 4 weeks or however long until the Undying Mind finally showed up. And there's something inherently frustrating about fighting the Vex, whether it's hobgoblins in their shield or just the frustrating level of the hitbox and the lack there of consistency when you're actually aiming directly at the stomach and it doesn't count as a crit. And some of that was alleviated in this season because I mean, there was Vex there, but a lot of what we were fighting were Cabal, and while they don't have the biggest hitboxes in the world, at least that hitbox is consistent.
It's functional.
When you hit it. Right. It's a good word for it. Plus, there were other things you could do for damage, like throw the batteries at the shieldy guys that did damage on top of your weapons too.
It felt like a mini menagerie.
It was a mini menagerie.
Bungie did a lot of things right this season.
Yeah. Another thing that they did well on the back end that I just figured out, like, or realized today, So in that Inatam fight, somehow I missed fighting the flame sister. Somehow in all of the bosses, I missed that consistently.
Oh, yeah.
If you fight her in best Inatam, you get that knocked off the list.
You get the triumph.
An excellent,
Fantastic.
yeah. That's
Wait, does it count as all 3 bosses?
It counts
if you kill
as all 3.
Yes.
Counts as all 3. So you could technically have waited throughout the entire season. Never did a
sons of
sundial.
bitches.
Sucker.
Yeah.
It's one of the good anti-FOMO things that they did, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I know
that
it's
was
still
good.
like there's a degree of it, but like no, it's really it's not
Yeah.
something you would have expected. You know, I would have thought, oh, I need to do every single one of them every week, but no, it's really
That's
cool that
right,
they did it
that's
that
right.
way.
Yeah.
Like lore reasons and
super
gameplay reasons. It's really well done.
Super helpful. Yeah.
It's kind of like when they change the direction the weapons face in your inventory, so you know which ones are kinetic and which ones are energy.
Today
Yeah.
I
Oh,
learned.
yeah.
Learned that yesterday. I've been playing this game since
It's
beta.
the little things.
Yep. So I think that's the final question, gang.
Right on.
That was a good one.
That was
That was
good
a good one. Yeah. So that brings us to the end of the episode. There we go, guys. Thank you all so much for listening in to episode 229 of the Planet Destiny podcast. A lot of good conversations going on this week. And just like at the end there, a little bit of knowledge that you might not have known about the way your gun faces in the icon. Little things like that you come to this show
Shut
for.
up, TBL.
A very special thanks to our guest right now, Mr. Sarsion. Thank you so much. Sarsion. Thanks so much for joining us.
Sarsion.
And basically holding a lecture on the Elixni language and how it plays out throughout the history of Destiny.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great having you here. And as we move forward, I can only hope that Bungie adds more lines into the game just to give you more things to do.
Please.
Man, I would love to see, I know we talked about it earlier, I would love to see that expanded into transcribing Cabal language.
Absolutely.
The language of the Vex, their coding, the Hive, the incantations they put all out there. That'd be so cool to go through, and I know you're the guy to do it.
Well, here's the thing, like it's not just me anymore. It never was,
Yeah.
but like now we actually have a cryptarchy community.
Yeah.
And it's like so many people in there are so passionate about this sort of thing. And like I really do hope Bungie does see that passion and go, well, let's throw them a bone or let's do something around this. Like there's definitely interest there, not just within our group, but like everywhere. Like that Reddit post that I put up got like 6,000 upvotes in like a matter of hours. Like people are really passionate about this sort of thing. I would love it if they did more.
Right on. Same, man. I here's hoping that we get more of that kind of cool context in the future of this. But all right, before we get on out of here, we do want to give you a chance to let everybody know where they can find you across the internet. I know you've got a Discord community that we've been posting out there in the chat for people to join up with other cryptographers.
Very cool. Thank you.
Where can they find you?
So I'm literally everywhere as Sarsion, Sarsion, absolutely every platform. I will eventually, once I get my internet fixed, do a little bit more streaming. It's been a while since I've done it, but I have a setup ready to go. So whenever I do start, I will be starting on my YouTube most likely. But you can check. I did animations a while ago. I think I won Movie of the Week for a Kabir animation that some people may have remembered. Kabir in the Vault of Glass. That was a really fun animation to do. And if anybody's interested in the few animations I have on my YouTube, please check them out. They're a blast to make, and I love seeing people's reactions to them in the comments. I love reading them.
Right on, everybody. So make sure you go and check out Sarsion all across the internet. I like that answer. That's a good answer.
That's good
and,
SEO.
Make sure you pronounce his name right.
Sarsione.
Sarsione.
So, the day he became Italian. I love it. But all right.
It's my fallen name.
It's your Elixni name. Perfect. Sarsione. No. Every fallen suddenly gets a perfect Italian accent whenever they say his name.
Sarsione.
They talk enough with their hands, man. I'll tell you what.
All four of them. Yes. Same joke. Same joke.
Oh, beautiful. This is what you come to this show for.
Oh, I love you guys.
Aura, where are you at, man? What you got going on?
Before I say where I'm at, give real quick shout out to One Slow SHO. My homie, my buddy, actually hit me with the 1,000 voices in Crucible. The first time I've ever been killed by it after using it for months on end. So shout out to SHO. You got me, dude. You got me. My name is Ara. You can find me twitch.tv/Ara or on Twitter, twitter.com/evilara, 3VIL_AURA.
Right on. What about you, Dan?
Hey guys, my name's Danfinity. You can find me on Twitch 4 days a week at twitch.tv/Danfinity. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Danfinity, but the I's are L's this week. Just doing a lot of different stuff. I'm doing some planning behind the scenes. If you would like, I'm planning a YouTube series for how to be a better blueberry. If you have suggestions, just drop them in my on my Twitter or in DMs on Twitter. I know that's dangerous, but drop them in DMs on Twitter or in Discord. I'm trying to compile them together so that I can just make something that you can point to. Other than that, join Sarsion's Discord and help them figure out the fallen language. That's
among others.
Thing. Yeah, amongst others. So yeah, that's it.
Right on. And of course, my name is The Black Link. You can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, all at The Black Link. I have been playing a lot of Division 2 over the past week, getting ready for the Warlords of New York. It's going to be dropping first week of March. I am psyched for that.
How are the changes?
There's going to be a lot of changes, mostly coming to the way armor is built and the way skills are calculated. So they're simplifying the way stats work on your armor. So that's a little less esoteric. They're kind of the opposite of Bungie when it comes to that. What are you doing with this gun? We're significantly reducing accuracy. What does that mean? Massive's like, oh no, we're taking accuracy down by about 24.856%, which means that it's only going to be effective about 5 meters. So they're simplifying a lot of the stat grinding. They're reworking the way skill power is gonna work in the game. There's some pretty cool stuff coming with Warlords of New York. So I've been back on Division 2, grinding things out and making sets that I'm going to have to completely remake when that TLC drops. But I love it. I love Division. It's one of my favorites. But all right, that is it for this episode 229 of the Planet Destiny podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.